been running my business now for a few years, and when I speak to people, they always want to start their own thing. They always talk about the next idea, the next project, um, their next stage in elevation in their lives, and all of that. But what people miss is the fact that you just have to start doing the thing. Just starting is I think the best thing that I ever did for myself. So a few years ago when I was made redundant from my full-time job, which I loved at the time, I was really hit with a few facts. Well, for one, I was gonna lose my job eventually, right? For two, the landlord wanted to sell the place where we were living, so I was gonna be displaced unless I found somewhere to live. I mean, I was offered the place to buy, but I didn't want to buy an apartment, and I didn't have that sort of money at the time either. So we had a few decisions to make, um, and I was made redundant with 100, you know, over 100 other people within the company, and it was a real rough time for a lot of people. And a lot of people went into kind of similar roles in different companies and all of that. And I think it's safe to say that I'm one of the few people who decided to just go all in on themselves, and just start something, right? So for years I was working in doing contractual work, wedding photography, graphic design, events photography, marketing bits here and there, consulting here and there. Um, so I knew what it felt like to like send an invoice for yourself and to get paid, etc., etc. But I wouldn't say that I always had like a full-time job in the background to help me. But at this point, there was no sort of backup plan. There was no plan. I just had to start with what I had. So this video, this is the longest intro, but this video is about sort of like addressing some of the key points which stops people from starting, and just kind of me explaining some of my story and some of the ways that you can, go over them hurdles, right? So one, most people wait way too long to start. Um, it's funny because you obviously won't know, you won't have any track record. There's no data to go off whether it's a good idea or not unless you actually do the thing, right? And you have to give it like a full time sort of like effort. I call it a full time effort because, the same energy that you put into your 9 to 5, having to come in on time, do the job, you know, not calling in sick all the time, and all of that. The fear that you feel when you're calling in sick to work, when you know you're lying, right? That should be the same fear that you have for your own business. You have to make it work. You have to make ends meet. But most people wait way too long. They plan, what's it called? Their paralysis. They're just waiting too long. They have to plan. They have to make sure all their ducks are in a row. They have to make sure everything's perfect. And in this life, nothing is like completely perfect. So you might as well start. I would say the point in which to start is like, if you are better than the average person at doing something, to me, there's a possibility that you can sell that kind of expertise in some capacity, you know? So you don't need to be perfect to start. You don't need the perfect setup to start. Um, I own a lot of camera gear, so I'm kind of blessed in those regards. I'm not even blessed with it. It took me a long time to accrue it, and it's through hard work that I was able to kind of like stack up what I need to stack up. I've stopped buying stuff now, but I think I've got a all right setup here. I'm at my home office. I've got a little a baby chair right there, but we make it work. I don't need the perfect setup to give this sort of advice. um, I'm just giving you value based on what I've been through and my life experiences, and if it works for you, then great. So yeah, you know, your first business idea will probably be bad, and that's normal. You know, I've had so many business ideas. I've had so many ideas of things that I want to do. It just happened to be that the thing that I was working on in my full time job, you know, throughout the years happened to be sort of the thing that I would eventually go into, you know. But underneath that, I've got, so marketing is sort of like my umbrella term for what I do. But underneath that, there's photography, there's videography, there's copywriting, there is social media management, consulting. You know, there's a bunch of different skills, but it all comes under the umbrella of marketing. Confidence usually comes after repetition, not before. So, you know, you can even scroll back to my first video doing this. And I'm not the most confident on camera. I think I'm decent, but I'm not the most like, I'm not jumping around and like zooming around and, you know, oh, this and that. Yeah, I'm just a chilled guy. I'm just a normal guy, just trying to build a business, trying to do right by his family, trying to put food on the table, in legal ways. You know, I don't think it's anything crazy that I'm doing. But you know, confidence comes over time, and you know, people will believe in it over time. At first, it feels cringe. It still feels kind of cringe, but you have to kind of put those reps in to kind of like earn your place. You know, I think they say that I might be way off of this, but I think I watched a video maybe a few years ago now. There was like the average YouTube page takes 3,000 videos in order to get to 100,000 subscribers. So you have this number. I don't know if that's still true, but you have this number here. So you can reverse engineer that now and say, okay, in order to get 3,000 videos and there's 365 days in a year, I need to be posting, you know, a certain amount of videos per day in order to get that. Okay, let's say I want to make this in the next, I want to get to 100,000 subscribers in the next 5 years, right? Which is, I think that's a reasonable, like, I don't know. I think that's quite reasonable. You know, you can reverse engineer it and say, okay, 5 times 365, you have that number, and then you're going to divide that by 3,000, and then there's your number, you know. And then from there, you can see how many subscribers you need to be hitting a day in order to hit that target and all of that. So, you know, but confidence comes over time, and the internet rewards people who consistently show up. So, you know, and you, again, you won't know this unless you just start. But like the more I post videos, the more comments I get, the more feedback I get, which kind of like creates this loop of, okay, now I've got feedback, I know what to create in the next video. I know how to sort of make this video better. I know what to do with my thumbnails. I know what to say, what kind of cadence to say in. Again, I'm not taking away from being myself, but you know, all of these things kind of help in the long run. And you learn faster by doing than by researching forever. And I'm guilty of this. I've been that person who just researches and researches. And, you know, when it comes down to it, I've just got, you know, analysis paralysis, because you know you can watch like 10 videos on the same subject on YouTube, right? And it's all free information, but they're coming at it from 10 different angles, and now you're kind of scratching your head thinking, okay, well, which angle is going to be right for me? So there's that. People care more about authenticity than perfection. I would say I'm an authentic guy. I really don't care about the glitz and glamour. I don't care about the corporate at all. I would say that I'm very anti-corporate, just kind of like what corporate has shown me in my life. And it's not the same for everyone, but for me, I think corporate is a massive game that is just not designed for me or people like me. So I kind of step away from that to kind of like put myself in a better position for myself, for my family, for my mental health, all of that. That is why I'm against corporate. I'm not saying if my business failed, right? And most businesses do fail. If my business was to fail and I need to get a job in corporate, I would do it. But that is not my goal. My goal is to kind of like sustain myself using digital marketing, using my skills, using my network, and using everything else. Um, Being authentic is so important. It's so important to me also because okay, I have this YouTube channel, and I'm talking to you guys, but I have to be myself with it, because if I'm not, then what's the point of doing it? And authenticity comes in it packages itself also in the fact that, okay, there are always trends happening on social media, and trends here and trends there, and it's nice to hop on trends sometimes, but sometimes you don't want to hop on trends. You want to be able to have a brand, right, where you can show up as your authentic self, right, and you can deliver in ways that feel comfortable to you, i.e., maybe not in the best sort of like studio or room or office, and still be able to hold attention and deliver something good. So that's my goal. That's my personal goal. If I whether I'm taking a walk, whether I'm just filming here, which is like my office where I work, or whatever, or whether I'm talking on stage or I'm doing whatever, it needs to be delivered with authenticity. I need people to know that I'm an approachable guy. You know, not to inflate my ego, but I'm definitely not a celebrity. I'm definitely not famous. I'm not too big to speak to anyone on a level, and that's something that means a lot to me. Your phone is definitely enough to begin. Your phone is enough to begin. I made another video. Hopefully it's out by now. But if I was trying to make £100 or £1,000 in a week, I'd pick up my phone, go into my contacts, and contact people with the skill that I have, and I would ask them how I can best serve them. If you're a gardener, knock on some doors, drop some leaflets, but you go pick up your phone. Every single person is a lead. Every single person is a lead until they're not. Oh, hey man, I've just started a gardening business, mate. What are you doing in the next 3 days? I'd love to just transform your garden. It's coming to summer. Have you done anything with your garden? Just like that. Stop comparing yourself. Stop comparing your beginning to someone else at 10 years. At year 10. So I've been doing this um for 11 years, right? 2015, I would say, is when I started to get my first clients, pretty early on. But like I said, I've always worked full time, but I've also always done like contract work on the side or whatever. So professionally, I would say from 2015. Um, it doesn't make, I talk to young people who just pick up a camera, right? For example, they might be videographers, and they're comparing their year one to your year 10, and there's lots of subtle nuances in sort of like what I see when I'm looking at a piece of video production, or I'm looking at some filmed work and whatever, and there's just lots of nuances that you only get from like doing repetitions, and being stuck on that one thing on Premiere Pro for hours, and then, oh, the light bulb moment, and now you've learned a new skill. It's been loads of that, and that's just part of the grind and part of getting through it. So, you know, definitely don't compare yourself to somebody when you're right at the beginning. And plus, you don't know what anyone else has done to get to where they are. Momentum just changes everything. And you have to carry on in this momentum. That's the thing with it. Like once you start, if you stop, you kind of lose that momentum. So you just want to keep going, no matter how much you slow down. Even, there are periods in gym, right? I'm trying to get fit, trying to be more healthy, but there are periods where I have to just slow down a bit because I might have injured something. It's not that I've stopped, or maybe I switched to like swimming for like a week or so just to go easy on my joints, but I'm still kind of like moving towards where I need to get to in terms of my fitness, in terms of my goals. So that's good. And the small wins builds belief as well. So the small wins, that they're kind of reinforcing your brain that you are the person that you think you are. You know, most successful people start before they are ready, and I think there's just a degree of kind of like jumping in headfirst, into a situation, and analyzing a little bit and being like, okay, do I really want to do this? So you don't waste your time or anyone else's time. But like jumping into something and committing is something that I find in a lot of entrepreneurs. There isn't a lot of time, of them. They're not dwelling for like days and weeks on end, because we need to just get over this thing so that we know if it works or not, so that we can move on to the next thing. If that is the case, yeah. So done is better than perfect. Done is better than perfect. I work with some amazing assistants. They don't always do things the way I would exactly do them, right? They don't do things exactly the way I would do them. But if I ask them to make changes for every single thing that I would do, that I might as well just do it myself, because it's just a waste of time. It's just a waste of time. And I remember when I was growing in my career, you'd have these sort of like back and forths with managers or people who are not even part of like your department, right? So you might have designed something great, and in a creative capacity, it works, it makes sense, and the arty people will know what I'm talking about. There is design, layout, and all of these things, and there are certain rules that just make something correct. But now a sales manager has come to approve the design for some reason, has changed everything, so it's just incorrect as a piece of design. And you keep on like sending it back to them and sending it back, and oh no, make this change, and sending it back, and oh no, this change, and now a whole week's gone. It's now Friday, and now they're emailing you at 5 o'clock, and you're like, I need to go home. That's long, bro. That's long. And it's that sort of search for perfection is only asking for like an extra 5%. Now, to some people, to some marketers out there, right? Marketers, people, business owners, whatever, they'll care about that 5%. That 5% to them is like, okay, that will take me to. But to me, I care about something getting over the line so that I can move on to the next thing, right? So it doesn't need to be 100% there. Get me to 90% there, and that's good to go. Done is better than perfect. And none of us are perfect anyway. So if you have an idea, if you want to start that business, if you just hop in, do it. You can always improve later. The hardest part is pressing publish the first few times. Why? Because you're worried about your friends. You're worried about your friends. What's he gonna? What's Bob gonna think of me? Oh no, what's Jane gonna think of me? They're gonna think I'm cringe. They're gonna think I'm a loser. Bro, when I had my son, I just forgot about all of that. I've been thinking about like doing YouTube videos for years, and you're watching others around you kind of like succeed in like your area of brilliance. You don't need to do that. Just start. Just start. You can always improve later. You know, you can always improve later. Now, if you wait until you feel ready, you might never start. You see how that works? If you wait until you feel ready, you might never start. So when you wake up on Monday morning and you're like, okay, I need to make 100 calls today in order to get some momentum in my business. I need to call 100 companies to sell this thing, or to ask them if they need this thing, because the calls are better than the emails, mind you. You need to just do that. On Monday morning, you're going to wake up and you're not going to want to do it. That's the trick. That's the trick of the devil. On Monday morning, on Friday, you're going to be talking about it. Saturday, you're going to be planning it out. Sunday, you're going to be planning and talking about it. You're like, yes, 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 yes. Monday morning, you're going to wake up and you're going to have a headache. You're going to have a headache, a cold. You're not going to want to do it. You're going to want to sleep in. I don't know what the phenomenon is called. I'm sure there's some science to back it up. But you're just going to not want to do it for some reason. I urge you to not listen to that. I urge you to not listen to that. I urge you to not listen to that. You need to just do it. And I'm saying this to myself as well. I'm saying this to myself as well. We all come up short. We can all improve. The future you is gonna thank you. It's gonna thank the current you for beginning today. Okay? It's gonna thank you. So you might as well start. What are you waiting for? Why are you still watching this? I'm joking. It's fine. Watch the rest of it. But start. Just start. Start messy. Start unprepared. Start nervous. Start scared. Start from a place. Just start. Just start. I owe so much to the me of, a couple of years ago. The me of over a decade ago. Who used to do those weddings and who really put himself out there. Thank you. But to the me of like 2.5 years ago, who was like, just start that marketing company, you've been made redundant, your back's against the wall, you have nothing else to lose, just do it. Oh my God, thank you. Because we are where we are now. But once you're there, it's not like, once you go over one hurdle, there's just another hurdle. There's just another hurdle. So we just need to keep on going. A year from now, you either wish you started today or be glad you did. So what are you gonna do? Thanks for watching. I see you in the next video. Like and subscribe. Peace.